Good morning, Madam Abihar and classmates. Today, my group will discuss about the within subjects design small. How does a within subjects design small n work? To start, all the experimental designs that we have discussed this far have required manipulating or selecting independent variables or testing a number of subjects. These are called large N designs. The N stands for the number of subjects needed for the experiment. The large N design, or the large N approach rather, is by far the most common technique used in a research design. But it is not only the approach used by the researchers. A small N design, which examines just one or a limited number of people, is preferred by some researchers. So in order to draw conclusions regarding the effects of independent variables, these researchers contend or argued that the large N design lacks clarity since they merge or combine the data from several different subjects. My fellow groupmate, Ms. Raniola, will continue to explain how the small N design works.
Thank you, Ms. D, for the introduction. Now I'm going to discuss the most basic single subject research design called the reversal design, also called the ABA design. Now, ABA design is an experimental design that supports causal inferences, and the data produced by such designs contribute to our knowledge of evidence-based interventions in the behavioral sciences. It is a type of single case design having three phases. First is phase A baseline condition in which no treatment is present. This is the level of response before any treatment is introduced, and therefore the baseline phase is a kind of control condition. Then there's phase B, a treatment condition in which a manipulation is introduced. There may be a period of adjustment to the treatment during which the behavior of interest becomes more variable and begins to increase or decrease. Again, the researcher waits until that dependent variable reaches a steady state so that it is clear whether and how it has changed, and then later on return to the no treatment condition, which is phase A. So the design allows for evaluation of the introduction of the treatment by comparing the dependent variable between the first two phases, the AB sequence, as well as the evaluation of the removal of the treatment by comparing the dependent variable between the last two phases, the BA sequence. Sometimes the researcher would not want to remove treatment due to ethical reasons. An AB design will be used even though without reversal, it cannot show that the treatment caused the change in behavior. Now, the main limitation on this approach is that we can use it only with experimental treatments that are reversible. Now we have Ms. Honda to discuss about the multiple baseline design.
To first define what is multiple baseline design. Breaking it down, multiple means many, while baseline in this sense is a normally occurring or a behavior that has not yet been subjected to manipulation, treatment, or intervention. Putting it together, it is a test for treatment on several behaviors or in different settings, and for testing the same treatment on a few different individuals. It can be effective in demonstrating the efficacy of an intervention technique without reversal to the baseline condition. Instead of using the same intervention of the same individual in different settings, the researchers can test two or more using a multiple baseline design. This increases the internal validity of the study. So, there are three types of multiple baseline design. These are the multiple baseline across different behaviors of the same subject, multiple baseline across the same behavior of different subjects, and we have the multiple baseline of the same behavior of one subject across different settings. So in multiple baseline across different behaviors of the same subject. In this version of the baseline design, multiple baselines are established for the same participant but for different dependent variables. And the treatment is introduced at a different time for each dependent variable. Imagine, for example, in a study on the effect of setting clear goals on the productivity of an office worker who has two primary tasks: making sales calls and writing reports. Baselines for both tasks could be established. The researcher could measure the number of sales calls made and reports written by the worker each week for several weeks. Then the goal setting pardon, then the goal setting treatment could be introduced for one of these tasks, and at a later time the same treatment could be introduced for the other task. If productivity increases on one task after the treatment is introduced, it is unclear whether the treatment caused the increase. But if productivity increases on both tasks after the treatment is introduced, especially when the treatment is introduced at two different times, then it seems much clearer now that the treatment was responsible and has been effective. Then we have multiple baseline across the same behavior of different subjects. A baseline is established for each several participants, and the treatment is then introduced for each one. Each participant is tested in an A-B design, wherein A is the baseline and B is the experimental condition. Note that in this design, the treatment must be introduced at a different time or for each participant. The idea is that if the dependent variable changes when the treatment is introduced for one participant, it might be a coincidence. But if the dependent variable changes when the treatment is introduced for multiple participants, especially when the treatment is introduced at different times for the different participants, then it is unlikely to be a coincidence. Take for example a test run for an anti-bullying campaign, and we use this type of design to determine its effectivity or its effectiveness. We then set the baselines in each school. In each school, as mentioned earlier, the treatment must be implemented at different times. After observing for whatever set timeline is set, say for example we have 1 month, we can then see the results if the anti-bullying campaign has been effective by measuring and comparing the aggravation and the aggression levels of each school. Then we have the multiple baseline of the same behavior of one subject across different settings. In this design, it does as its name suggests. The participants' baselines will be tested in the same behavior but span across different settings. Emphasis on the usage of a singular form, meaning there will only be one subject. In this example, we have Diego. Diego is an avid reader. We will then observe and then intervene in different settings like the school, the library, and his home, whether it be novels, in this case, yes, whether it will be novels, textbooks, documentary books, and it will be like we are just testing his will to read. So that is it for the multiple baselines design. Thank you.
Changing criterion designs are a type of research design used to evaluate the effectiveness of an intervention in modifying behavior. This design involves gradually changing the performance criterion for success as the participant makes progress or encounters difficulty towards the desired outcome. Changing criterion designs are often used in small N research, which involves studying a single participant or small group of participants and may involve operant conditioning techniques to modify behavior. This approach allows for a more tailored intervention that is challenging enough to promote progress but not too challenging that it becomes unachievable, and allows for adjustments to be made to the intervention as the participant makes progress towards the desired outcome. The use of changing criterion allows for a more precise evaluation of the intervention's effectiveness by tracking the participant's progress towards the desired outcome. Modification over time. In small end research, which involves studying a single participant or small group of participants, changing criterion designs are often used to evaluate the effectiveness of an intervention. When using operant conditioning techniques to modify behavior, it is often not possible to change the behavior all at once, and modification over time may be necessary. Operant conditioning involves modifying behavior by manipulating the consequences that allow the behavior. In small end research, a baseline phase is first conducted to establish the level of the target behavior with an intervention. Then a treatment phase is initiated to modify the target behavior through reinforcement or punishment techniques. When using operant conditioning techniques, it may be necessary to adjust the reinforcement or punishment contingencies over time to maintain progress towards the desired behavior change. This allows also for adjustments to be made to the reinforcement or punishment contingencies based on the participant's progress. Here is an example the of modification over time. For example, um, for if a study is being conducted to reduce the frequency of a child's aggressive behavior using operant conditioning techniques, the performance criterion may be set initially at a 20% reduction in the frequency of aggressive behavior. However, as several sessions, it becomes evident that the child is making slow progress towards the criterion, and the criterion is adjusted to a 10% reduction to help the child achieve success. As a child continues to make progress, the criterion may be adjusted to a 30% reduction to continue to challenge the child. In this example, the modification over time approach allows the adjustments to be made to the reinforcement contingencies based on the child's progress towards the desired behavior change. This approach helps us to tailor the intervention to the child's individual needs and promotes progress towards the desired behavior change. In small research, using operant conditioning techniques, changing criterion is a common method used to modify behavior gradually over time. Changing criterion involves setting a series of progressively more stringent goals for the behavior being modified. Here are some potential benefits of using the methods. First, more precise control over behavior. By gradually tightening the criteria for success, researchers can gain more precise control over the behavior being modified. This can help to ensure that the behavior changes in the desired way and that any improvements are maintained over time. Second, increased experimental validity. The changing criterion can help to increase the validity of the experiment by reducing the likelihood of spurious or chance effects. By getting progressively more difficult goals, researchers can be more confident that any changes in behavior are due to the intervention being tested rather than other factors. Third, be a better understanding of the process of behavior change. Changing criterion can help researchers to better understand the progress or the process of behavior change by providing insights into the rate and nature of uh, changes that occur. This information can be used to refine the intervention and to help and to develop more effective techniques by modifying behavior. Fourth, improved participant engagement. Setting achievable goals can help to keep participants engaged in the intervention and motivated to continue making progress. This can increase the likelihood of success and reduce the risk of dropout and non-compliance. And lastly, enhance generalization. Gradually increasing the difficulty of the criterion can help to promote generalization over of the behavior change to other settings or context. This can help to ensure that the behavior change is durable and has real world applicabilities. Overall, changing criterion is a useful technique to modifying behavior gradually over time in small and research using operant conditioning techniques. By setting a series of progressively more stringent goals, researchers can gain more precise control over the behavior being modified, increase experimental validity, and better understand the progress of behavior change. Now let's go on to increments. Increments. In changing criterion designs, the performance, criterion is gradually increased or decreased as the participants makes progress or encounters difficulty towards the desired outcome. This approach allows for a more precise evaluation of the intervention's effectiveness by assessing the intervention's impact on behavior change. When using the criterion design with increments, the behavior being modified is changed in small steps towards the desired outcome. The criterion for success is intentionally changed for as the behavior, is modified to promote progress towards the desired outcome. For example, suppose a study is being conducted to increase the frequency of a child's verbal interactions with peers using the behavior intervention plan. The initial performance, criterion may be set at one verbal interaction per 10-minute observation period. As the child meets the criterion consistently over several sessions, the criterion may be increased to two verbal interactions per 10-minute observation period. As the child continues to make progress, the criterion may be further increased to three verbal interaction per 10-minute observation period. In this example, the behavior is being modified in increments towards the desired amount of performance criterion is intentionally changed as the child meets the criterion consistently. This approach allows for a more tailored intervention that is challenging enough to promote progress, but not too challenging that becomes unachievable. Using increments in changing criterion designs allows for a more precise evaluation of the intervention's effectiveness by tracking the participants' progress towards the desired outcome. This approach also allows for adjustments to be made to the intervention as the participants make progress towards the desired outcome.
Another small N within subjects design is discrete trials designs. And unlike the previously discussed designs, this design does not rely on any baselines. Rather, it relies on presenting and averaging across many applications of different treatment conditions, where they compare the performance on the dependent variable across these treatment conditions. Because these repeated presentations can provide a reliable picture of the effects of the independent variable. Thus, the results from a few subjects are likely to be generalized to others. And in current psychological research, discrete trials designs are typically used by researchers who study the basic processes of psychophysics and learning, otherwise called experimental analysis of behavior. And the benefits of conducting discrete child designs is that it helps researchers describe basic behavioral processes. It allows for good tests of causal relationships. It emphasizes the performance of a single individual. And because this design utilizes a wide range of trials that range from hundreds to thousands, they provide a very reliable measurement of the effect of the independent variable to the dependent variable.
The next topic, we're gonna be discussing about the statistics and variability in small n design. So throughout the discussion, we haven't discussed statistics, and that is because most small n experiments in the past have not used them. The researchers would likely determine whether the independent variable have an effect simply by looking at the graph of the data. For example, in the hypothetical baseline study, to reduce cartoon viewing, statistics will not be necessary to judge whether the boys' cartoon viewing had dropped. They can just view the data from the graph that the researchers interpreted whether there is a significant effect or not. The use of statistics in small n designs are controversial among small n researchers. However, due to the rise of availability of new statistical approaches, the use of the statistics in small n designs are increasing. Statistics could help if the pattern data is too ambiguous to interpret just by looking, and statistics can give a better image of the data with numbers. A number of special statistical techniques have been developed for small n designs, and the use of statistics appears to be increasing. So the next topic we're gonna be discussing about is when to use large n and small n design. First, we have complete and accurate picture. So we can get a more complete and accurate picture of the effects of independent variables from a small n study than from a large n study. And second is issue of generalizability. Generalizing from results of one or few subjects is particularly risky when the subjects are people. And that is all for the topic. For the last topic, it will be discussed by my groupmate named JN.
For the research study, we chose a study entitled Effectiveness of Parenting Training in Mothers with a Borderline Personality Disorder, a multiple baseline single case experimental design study. Now for background. Parents with borderline personality disorder or BPD experience deficiencies in parenting skills leading to increased family burden and stress, mental health problems in children, and even family violence. The present study evaluated the effectiveness of a Dutch version of the parenting training based on dialectical behavior training or DBT for mothers with borderline personality disorder by Renneberg and Rosenbach in 2016. Now for methods. Given the high heterogeneity of patients with BPD, a multiple baseline single case experimental design study was conducted with standardized and idiosyncratic assessments of parenting behavior and parental stress before, biweekly, during, and after the training. Participants with the 10 participants with a mean age of 35.9 were mothers with a full diagnosis of borderline personality disorder with at least one child under the age of 6 at the start of the training. Now for results. 4 participants discontinued the training. Among of the 6 training completers, clinically reliable improvements in parenting skills between pre and post follow-up training were the most pronounced for inconsistent discipline, involvement, positive parenting, and corporal punishment. Frequent idiosyncratic assessments show that for all 6 mothers, the DBT training had positive effect on parenting skills, while for 5 mothers, this effect was large. Positive changes in parenting stress were found in 3 for post and 4 for follow-up participants. Positive changes in parenting behavior were also found for the 4 training non-completers. Participants were satisfied with the training. For conclusions and implications, DBT training, parenting training, has a great clinical value for mothers with BPD struggling in raising their children. In the researchers' effectiveness study, they found that empirical evidence to confirm this clinical impression through tentative investigation of individual effects among 6 training completers. The researchers learned that, in comparison to other mothers, mothers with comorbid PTSD, which is 3 of them, show almost no changes in level of parenting stress after the training. The mothers with most positive results received antidepressants and had clear arrangements about the role of partners in the family. The complexity and heterogeneity of the condition requires a more idiosyncratic approach. Mothers with borderline personality disorder could profit from more stress management regarding parenting and increasing commitment to participation in DBT training, DBT parenting training. Thank you.